again on UBC TV. Be part of this conversation, of course, using the hashtag UBC Front Bench. Of course, at a later stage, my producer, of course, will be putting the telephone number on the screen. You'll be in position to ask a few questions as well as giving in your comments. But I also told you that I do expect the Honorable Minister Betty Yamongi. She will be joining us in a few, but at least with me, I do have the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Agre David Chibenge. We are talking matters gender, and we need to understand what the ministry has done to ensure that they accelerate gender equality, but also social development within Uganda. Honorable, you're most welcome. Thank you so much for sparing time amidst your tight schedule to come to speak to the nation on your public broadcaster on issues gender equality, but also social development. First things first, what are you doing for now to ensure that Ugandans are privileged to enjoy the few programs that you have put up? Because one of your mandate as a ministry is to ensure that you maximize the potential, but of course focusing on inclusivity. That is both men and women. As a ministry, what do you have for the nation for now?
Once again, good evening, viewers. It is my pleasure to be here this evening, most especially as we prepare to celebrate the International Women's Day that will be commemorated this year in Chankwanzi district at a place called Bukwiri Church of Uganda Primary School, and this is within Butemba Town Council. We will be converging in Bukwiri just like we've done previously. Last year we were in Katakwi. The year before that, we were in Chiruhura. As a ministry, we normally do these celebrations on rotational basis.
Okay.
But most importantly, as a ministry responsible for gender, labor, and social development, some people have correctly dubbed it a people's ministry. And like you've said, gender is not about women alone. Gender is about people, women and men, female and male. And the ministry is responsible for promoting participation, for promoting inclusion of both the female and male in the development processes of the country. And it looks at the entire life cycle, and that is the reason it's been dubbed a people's ministry, because matters family, matters children, matters youth, matters, as I've said, male and female, sit within the ministry. And even when somebody has graduated out of being referred to as a child or a youth and enters the world of work, this person remains a responsibility of this ministry. And as far as inclusion is concerned, the ministry aims to ensure participation in the development process by all categories of people, with special focus on the vulnerable groups. And that is why the special interest groups, as we normally refer to them, are also within the mandate of the ministry. The councils that have been established to empower these special interest groups sit within the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. You must have heard about the council, National Youth Council, National Women Council, National Council for Older Persons, National Council for Persons with Disabilities. And then you have also the culture dimension. Culture plays a very important role in defining a people, in determining their way of life, what they do, how they do it, how they produce, how they participate in development. So culture also sits within the ministry responsible for gender, labor, and social development. But you would say that within all these groups that the ministry looks at, women take a very special place in the development efforts of the country, and for various reasons. Before we go into the international efforts by women to claim their space in the development of societies, and one will take you to the Beijing, the World Summit that sat in Beijing in 1995. You also have, it's not by mistake that when government of Uganda was reviewing its constitution in the year 1995, a lot of emphasis was placed on entrenching the desire of government to promote affirmative action in favor of the hitherto marginalized groups. And amongst those marginalized groups were the women. I think historically, we've all grown up in societies where women have always been a bit downgraded and given a lower status. And this is a historical challenge that government of Uganda was determined to deal with.
Okay.
Of course, by 1995, already government had shown its desire to put women and all people on equal footing. You remember the launch of UPE, the Universal Primary Education Program, whose aim was to afford equal opportunity to access education for both boys and girls. And even when the policies started by emphasizing the boy child, at the end of the day, I think it was out of the 4 children that government started with, one of them had to be a girl. But the reality of it was that as soon as the program started, there was overwhelming evidence that girls needed to be afforded equal chance to access education like the boy child.
Okay.
And as we talk now, that policy quietly was relegated, and as many girl children as came to school were accommodated and given equal status in education. And it's not surprising that we are now talking of gender parity having been attained at the level of primary basic education. We boast as a government of gender parity having been attained.
Okay.
There are still a number of constraints that the girl child faces, but at the end of it all, it is not for lack of will on the part of government, it's not for lack of policies and investments government has made. If you interrogate even all the development plans, we are concluding the NDP 3, we are moving into NDP 4, effective, I think, July this year. Emphasis has been placed on human capital development, the human element within the Ugandan society. And as I said, once you talk of human capital, once you talk of developing the human element, you are talking of both the women and the men equally. So a number of interventions have come up. After the constitution, a number of programs have been promoted by government. Okay. As I said, I talked about the political structures that have been created. You have the National Youth Council,
Okay.
you have the National Women Council. All these are structures that enable and facilitate participation of both the female and the male right from grassroots level. You have structures that enable participation of these two at every village in this country up to national level. And the representation accommodates both the female and the male. Then you have structures that are specific to the women. Just like when we get to look at the empowerment programs that government has put in place, you have the National Women Council, which also has its structures from national level, from grassroots level up to national level. And other programs that have elevated the status of women, have enhanced women participation in leadership, in decision making. We have women members of parliament elected initially to represent districts, but we also have women leaders who in their own right have contested and have been able to assume leadership at various levels, plus other opportunities that have come to them. But I think most importantly is the investment at the end of the day that government is making in education. Because even these empowerment programs can be sustained, and the women can on their own, they normally call it breaking the glass ceiling, women on their own can achieve, and they have demonstrated that capacity to achieve. So when we meet every year, as we converge every year to commemorate the International Women's Day, we are looking at a number of achievements. Uganda is one of the countries that has been hailed globally for its policies and deliberate efforts on the part of government to promote inclusive development that brings on board all people.
All right, thank you so much, PS Upgrade David Chibenge. Like I told you earlier, we are glad the Honorable Minister for the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development has joined the bench. And he's going to be, of course, talking about also a number of issues. Honorable Minister, thank you so much for sparing time to come and speak to the nation on issues concerning gender equality. We are talking about empowering communities. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much, and I thank the PS for the articulation already done.
Okay.
And thank you for inviting us.
All right.
Yes.
Honorable Minister, let me pick up from there. Do you think the government has done enough when it comes to maximizing the potential of Ugandans to ensure that they move a step when it comes to social protection and labor productivity?
Oh, I think the government has made strides in ensuring that we put in place all the necessary frameworks to ensure that social protection is harnessed, employment and workers' rights are protected, because issues around social protection is not only for government, but we can start by looking at the legal frameworks.
Okay.
I think in Uganda we have several legal frameworks that are in place, because everything starts with the law. The law, the regulations, and the policy. When you look at the Constitution, the objective principle of the Constitution and several articles of the Constitution recognizes social protection, recognizes social issues like education, like health, as a human right. It mentions the issue of decent employment, decent work, issues of children, issues of other vulnerable groups like the aged, and the affirmative action. I think Article 44 or 40 something there talks about issues of decent employment, decent housing, All those are social issues. Policy-wise, we have also put in place a number of policy, but the laws, we have the Pension Act, we have the NSSF Act, we have the UBRA Act, which is still on social protection. We have the parliamentary pension. We have several pension, and also we have liberalized the pension sector. That's why you find so many health insurance, so many saving groups that are targeting the social sector. We have put in place regulation for managing the social aspect of saving and cooperative at the level of communities. So broadly, the empowerment, the social empowerment through social protection has been achieved. We are the lead sector in social protection, and we have put in place several programs. We have SAGE, which is 80 years and above, getting 25,000 for those older people. It is one of the most popular program among the people, and even it does not target the public servants, but public servants, wherever our team goes in, they keep asking, but why don't we also be accommodated under SAGE? I have found people who have relatively good relatives and children, and they are saying, please, can we be enrolled? But also many are asking for lowering the age. We have other program in the ministry like social grants, the one for older persons that targets older persons 65 to 60 to 69 years to 79 years.
69, 79.
And between 5 to 10 people can come together and they get up to 5 million and start enterprises. When you look at the testimonies for this, it has transformed the lives of many. Persons with disability grants under the social sector. We have the cash for implemented in West Nile. That program supports community work where you are paid if a hospital is being constructed, a road is being constructed, a market is being constructed. We can partner, and the community undertakes simple part of the work, and they are paid cash. It is one of the social sector program. We have one which is for it's nutrition for mothers, pregnant mothers up to lactating mothers of 2 years children. They are given some nutrition and support, which is also targeting a number of people in West Nile, and many, many other programs.
Honorable Minister, before we go for that commercial break, do you at times, or do you think about the indifferences within our economy as a nation when you're coming up with all these programs? Because Ugandans seem not to be satisfied with what government is doing for them to earn a living or to survive.
You see, we are now 45 million Ugandans?
Yes.
Approximately 45 million Ugandans. The size of our economy is with the GDP has not yet reached a point where we can absorb everybody. We have done comparative analysis. Even in the US, even in the UK, they have not managed to satisfy the social protection market. Sometimes people reach retirement age in developed countries and they are not able to access immediately their funds, because in some of those countries they allow their funds also to be invested in development projects for government. So we cannot say everybody is covered. We still have gaps. What we need to understand is that we have tried to reach the most vulnerable. The target is the most vulnerable. That's why we are saying we would have loved to give SAGE at 60 years and above where the amount also is higher, but our economy cannot sustain. That's why we target the most vulnerable, but recognize that we need to continue working to achieve social protection, universal social protection for the rest. And we have the gaps, we have identified the gaps, we have a strategy to address the gaps. That's why there is the Universal Health Insurance Bill that is under consultation, which will support a number of people. That's why we have a strategy for scaling up SAGE, waiting for the right opportunity. That's why under other social programs, we have a strategy, other strategy of empowerment of other segments of society. So it cannot be a one-size-fits-all. You cannot satisfy everybody, but one program can target a certain vulnerable communities, while, for example, PDM as an empowerment program will also look at segments of these vulnerable groups. That's why when it came to PDM, as a ministry, we had to make a case for quota system, because we knew vulnerability at that level of PDM required that we segment the older persons to have their quota, the women to have a quota, the youth to have their quota. That's why you have 30% reserved for youth, 30 for women, 10 for persons with disability, and 10 for older persons. So it's a multi-pronged approach, but still we cannot say we will reach everybody, but we will reach as much as possible the ones that we can reach with the consideration of the economy.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Thank you so much, PS, for those great insights. Now, UBC Front Bench continues, but allow me to take a very short commercial break. I'll return with your messages and questions. Don't go away.
This is the Front Bench. In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archive stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Oh, Karibu.
Mama Naj.
Madam, how are you?
I'm okay.
Here are your bananas.
Are they good?
Very, very good. But oh, Karibu, you are always buying bananas. Have you updated yourself like you update your stomach? Hey.
Mama Naj.
Look at this.
My balance.
No balance. Mama Nash to give you the balance. That is a criminal.
You can register as a voter or check.
Rukia, did you hear?
What?
Vote update is happening. If you don't register, who will vote for your honorable? Rastad.
Zara, did you send that report?
I forwarded your email this morning.
Peter, can you imagine? I just verified my voter's details online. I just verified my voter's details online, and it's as easy as sending a WhatsApp message.
Online?
Yes.
Show me.
Uganda, your vote is your voice, and every voice matters. From 20th January to 10th February 2025, you can register as a voter or check to update your voter details. Visit our update center within your parish. Call 0800-200-071 or visit www.ec.or.ug today. This message is brought to you by the Electoral Commission of Uganda.
To be a winner, it requires that you exceed all the limits of mankind and womankind. But when you play with MTN Momo, winning is easy. Simply get your phone and use the Momo app or dial *165*3#, enter merchant code, enter amount, enter your Momo PIN, and pay. Congratulations, easy! Your stomach is full, and now you stand a chance to win mobile money with MTN Momo.
This is the front bench.
Well, thank you so much for keeping it UBC. UBC Front Bench continues. I told you about the telephone contact that we have on our screens. You can keep your questions and comments coming in through, of course, directing them to the Honorable Minister as well as the Permanent Secretary. And we are also talking about matters gender, issues, equality, labor and social development. Very many questions and comments are coming in through. I do have... all right, what policies or programs has the ministry implemented to support women's participation in leadership and decision-making positions? What are the ministry's top priorities for promoting women's employment and equality in the coming years? And what initiatives has the ministry undertaken to address the issue of FGM and offer harmful practices? This is Jeremy Omamungu from Pakwach. We have one Saint Nwajira Richard says, I want to take this opportunity to thank the government of Uganda for striving to fight the outbreaks among Ugandans. Thank you so much, colleagues, for sending in your questions. Permanent Secretary, let's talk about employment. Ugandans are going abroad, probably for greener pastures. They have hopes in those outside countries, probably because there are not enough jobs in Uganda. When they reach abroad, they are subjected to torture and a number of bad acts, probably. The government has done a lot to ensure that Ugandans are safe while there. But what are you doing as the ministry to ensure that you still maintain the relationship that is between Uganda and also these other countries where Ugandans go for survival?
The starting point in terms of regulating is actually regulating the movement from Uganda to these destination countries, which are largely for now the Middle East countries. That's where the biggest number of Ugandans are migrating to in search of employment opportunities. But even that, we think, is a temporary phenomenon. We get it right in terms of the policies government has put in place. We've talked about NDP4, which has emphasized investment in human capital development, investment in social protection, as the Honourable Minister has said, opening up new areas that have huge potential for employment of our young people. There is the area of culture and the creative industry, the entertainment industry. It is one area which has been given a lot of emphasis in NDP4. Tourism and culture, creatives, tourism are linked. There is a linkage between these. I'm raising these beforehand to say that that movement, the labor migration we are seeing, should be treated as a temporary phenomenon. Once all these policies start giving us the fruits. Under the NDP4, there has been emphasis put on a 10-fold growth within our economy over the next planned period, and that the next 5 years, government has committed itself to ensure that we achieve that fold, and the number of interventions that have been put in place. PDM is actually one of them. It's unprecedented that government puts, or any government even within the region, is putting the kind of resources government of Uganda is delivering at parish level within the entire country. We had programs like WEP, Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program. We had the Youth Livelihoods Program, which we are targeting a few young people, a few women in groups within some parishes. But PDM is a shot in the arm, in the sense that you have every parish receiving every year 100 million Uganda shillings. And that money is available to the homesteads to invest. If, as His Excellency the President has put, we take the message seriously and people utilize that money to transition into the money economy to improve on their productivity, there will be opportunities for employment here. So, labor migration, for now, is something that we've had to accept and to embrace. And our duty as a ministry is how to make it safe, how to regularize it, how to ensure that the rights of the migrant workers are respected, are protected. And for you to do that, it requires entering bilateral agreements with the destination countries. So Uganda, our ministry has been negotiating a number of these agreements. We've signed agreements with the Saudi Arabian government. We've signed a memorandum of understanding with the United Arab Emirates. We've engaged with Jordan, we've engaged with Qatar, we've engaged with Oman. All these are countries where we have arrangements that facilitate that movement. But like you are saying, an agreement on paper is not enough to guarantee rights of people. And that's why you still hear those voices of people who are not paid, people who are denied an opportunity to communicate with their families, people whose rights are abused, our citizens. And this is where we work together with our missions or through our missions in these countries to mitigate some of these challenges that may come up. So the enforcement of those agreements requires that extra level of engagement. And within the agreements, we have also provided for interministerial, interagency technical committees. Each of the parties to these agreements names an interministerial team. And those two teams, one from Uganda and the other from the destination country, engage regularly to pick up these issues that are coming up. The effectiveness of these requires, again, other layers. And in the case of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where we have the biggest number of our people, we have even added a layer of a labor attaché whose work is largely to follow up all these matters and work through the ambassador, through these missions, to ensure that the rights of our people are protected. But we also license the companies that are responsible for this movement of people. So where we've had, I think, the biggest challenge as a country is a number of people who travel on their own outside that framework. And many times when we get these cases, when they are reported, we check, because we have an online system, a management information system, where all data has been captured. There is no Ugandan that is cleared by Ministry of Gender to go in search of employment opportunities whose details we don't have. But many times there are cases that are reported, you go to your database and you can't trace some of these people. Now these are cases of people who have gone to visit and ended up staying there, who have used visas to access some of these markets, and at the end of the day, when their visas expire, they go underground. And at the end of the day, of course, we are a government and we work with foreign affairs. Even when we get those cases, we don't disown them. We alert our mission and see how those kind of cases can be helped. So that is how we endeavor to pay equal attention to the diplomatic relations between our countries, in order that even when there are kind of mishaps that could happen, there is a mechanism through which you can quickly address it, you can trace individual cases, and ensure that where somebody was conveyed through a licensed company, the company takes responsibility. Even the other side, we don't encourage a Ugandan being taken without a clear destination through a job order. So there are also companies, the other side, that are licensed, that work with our local companies, and that way we minimize a lot of friction that could arise and harm even the relationship between these countries.
Honorable Minister, understanding what government is doing and what has been done so far, let's talk about data collection and analysis. Have you monitored the processes when it comes to starting up a few government programs that are initiated to ensure that Ugandans change their lifestyles? Talking about SAGE, talking about GROW for women, talking about WEP. It seems these programs are not well felt to the beneficiaries that are supposed to benefit from them. Have you done enough sensitization to ensure that Ugandans are privy to all this information?
I think the issue is actually not lack of knowledge of all our programs.
What is the issue?
The issue is also not about not monitoring. We monitor it so much to the extent that we have understood that the programs are too popular, that it requires increasing the budget allocation. For instance, SAGE is one of the most popular programs in the country that when it goes to parliament and you've reduced the money, it will be members of parliament who will rise up. It's been members of parliament who bring the views of the population, asking for the age to be lowered. When you talk about OWEP, when PDM was initiated, there was a proposal from our side as executive that let's merge the money for OWEP into the PDM to increase the uptake and the budget for PDM. It was the women, the National Women Council, it was the members of parliament that stood firm and said, this is one of the programs that we see the tangible impacts on the ground. When it comes to youth livelihood, people are aware, but usually they say the youth are difficult when it comes to repayments. But people are aware. They uptake, but the recovery from youth is a little bit difficult. When you talk about another program called Juakali, which is to support with the equipments to start businesses, it is the people who are saying, please, among all the government programs, this is the one as members of parliament, we feel it. Can we increase the amount? Now you come to GROW. We have had so many programs of governments that are supporting with capital. We have a Myoga, we have others, but in the country now, throughout the country, there are majorly two programs that are now popular for cheap capital or affordable capital. it is GROW and PDM. So GROW has overtaken almost all the government programs. We had, Ministry of Finance initiated the small loans for recovery program for COVID. There's UDB, there is Agricultural Fund, there are all these other programs, Myoga and so on. But GROW within just 1 year has overtaken all these programs for purpose of demand. So it is that all our programs, people are aware, the implementation is among the best. That is why the demand is so high. We monitor them robustly. Some of them, like GROW, we have even hired the KPMG that has analyzed the data. For OWEP, we have the data that has been generated right from the district level up to our desk, that we know the beneficiary, we know the address, we know the names, we know the telephone numbers. So anybody who wants to go and confirm will just, even at the district level, you will reach and be able to know, where do I get somebody who has uptake for the program of SAGE, the one for WEP, the one for. So yes, we have had a lot of support, a lot of uptake, but like I said before, our economy is still small. Our GDP is still not big enough to accommodate all the needs of government. The infrastructure needs, which takes precedent, the security and defense needs, which are very vital, agriculture, which is the backbone, trade and investment. So when you have a basket and then you have your listing, then for the economy to grow further, you need to invest also in areas that will have return. Now, social sector takes without much return.
Okay.
And so that's why it becomes very difficult to invest in social sector, because for it, you are looking at vulnerable, supporting the vulnerable. That's why its budget is usually in most countries will be more sufficient when the economy has developed, the GDP level is high, and you have more capital for things like. That's why health insurance, for example, universal health insurance, is very difficult to implement, because it will take money to support the poor who become recurrent expenditure. It's an expenditure that you have to put every year, but the return.
Honorable Minister, before I cross to the PS, what is that pressing issue that needs to be addressed to empower communities in Uganda?
The pressing issue for me when it comes to empowerment of communities is, first of all, recognition that poverty is the #1 issue everywhere. So how do we address poverty? For us, the social sector, we say, provide affordable capital. If I provide affordable capital, even the youth that has studied in Makerere and has no job will be able to borrow this money and do something for their lives. 2, the informal sector in this country is too high. Can we formalize? Can we have programs that formalizes and move people from informality? When you go in Kampala, all those people you find on the roadside selling furniture, welding, having shops on the roadside, all those are informal sector. We need to support them with the skills. We need to support them with the programs that will grow their businesses and support them to formalize their businesses, so that they are able to take their goods into a supermarket, into where they can trade even with international community and regional markets. And when you formalize, you will also get taxes from there. And of course, for women and girls is education, which is very vital. Without education, a person like me, I would not be here.
True that.
So education and capital to support people, and skilling for those who have not got education or do not have jobs, programs that can support them.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable Minister. PS, our time is fast spent. We have the International Women's Day, 8th March. And I do understand that the theme is to accelerate gender equality. But still, we still have women struggling to participate on equal terms with men. What do you have to say about that as we summarize, as we finish our show?
I think, notwithstanding all the achievements that we have enumerated and people have highlighted in several fora in terms of what Uganda has achieved, I think we are not yet there. We are not yet there because, as the Honourable Minister says, the basis, the foundation of any society is what happens at family level, what happens at homestead level. So until we re-examine the decision making at the family level, which decision making many times has a bearing on which child will have an opportunity even to access school, to participate in all these programs that we are talking about of government, I think we still have a long way to go. So education, for me, as the Honourable Minister says, is the starting point. But even when we talk about education, we are also probably starting it at a point that affects our returns from the massive investments that our country, our government is making. I was one of the happiest people when I listened to the report that was recently released by the Ministry of Education and Sports, of the Education Policy Review Commission, which emphasized the need for us as a country to invest in early childhood education and development. And there are a lot of things that are going to happen at family level, at homestead level, before even one accesses formal schooling. And you start the journey. So we must make sure the girls come through school, the boys come through school. We must ensure that they come out with the right skills. We are living in a technologically driven world. And the beauty of such a world is that getting your space in that world is not about the muscle you have, about the energy that you tend to portray. It's about the skills you have. It's about the ability, the mental capacity that you have. Girls can access space, women can access space in leadership, in decision making, in business, just like men can. Actually, it is even apparent that there are areas where women have proved they can even do better than the men. So it's about the investment that we are going to make as a country. We minimize those that require social assistance grants from government. Let's limit those to the few and the exceptions and get the bulk of our people through the system, take advantage of the opportunities that government has made available through education, through economic empowerment, through the skilling programs, these skilling hubs that government is promoting. All these are opportunities that will enable our people improve on their capacity, their productivity, and therefore the economy of the country will be put at a level where we can achieve those high targets that we have set ourselves as government.
All right, thank you so much, Permanent Secretary Agre Chibenge. Honorable Minister, your last words regarding empowering communities, talking about enhancing gender equality, labor productivity, and social protection in Uganda. But of course, as we also gear up for the International Women's Day celebrations on 8th March.
My concluding word is that the Ministry of Gender has a wide responsibility of empowering communities. Empowering communities requires that we get to the community through some institutional frameworks, but also through certain entrenched practices. And so the stakeholders' collaboration, especially with cultural institution, religious institution, community development officers in districts, and collaborating work with NGOs and our partners to change the mindset. Because we can talk here about education, we can talk about empowerment, we can talk about those programs. But if culture dictates and somebody believes that they are not going to uptake the program because their culture or their religion does not allow, then we shall not move far. Okay. So for me, it's disentangling the stereotypes, the culture, the practices and norms that will either make a woman not access land to cultivate, or will subjugate a girl to marry before puberty, or will make a parent say, instead of educating a girl, I will only educate boys. So my baseline is, we have anchored all this, we have achieved so much, we have everything in place, but we need to create awareness and collaborate with cultural institutions and religious institutions to disentangle the norms and practices that makes people not to get empowered.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable Minister, together with the Permanent Secretary, for the great insights. People who are still sending in messages, thank you so much for keeping it UBC. Dan Chidega, thank you so much. Salutations for the great work you're doing for our country, Uganda. I am a living testimony of the great work the ministry has done and continues to do with young people. The ministry mentored me as a young leader, right from being the chairman NYEC to becoming youth MP and eventually Yala Speaker. That is Dan Chidega. Thank you for the presentation. Government funds the projects, but how they are managed is poor. Service providers are very inferior in service delivery. Right. Their average retirement age is about 60 years. Why don't you reduce it to about 50 years so as to create room for the many non-employed Ugandan, but most importantly, to retire Ugandans at 50 years when they are still strong to support themselves. And one last one, Wanangai Enoch from Bulamburi says, good evening, Uganda. Thank you for the program. I appreciate all efforts made to see that Ugandans are doing well. The problem with some of our country leaders that they always talk about good solutions facing the people of Uganda, which is good, but the biggest problem we have is that people who are entrusted by His Excellency, the President, at times let him down. Ladies and gentlemen, time is not our best ally, but allow me to appreciate. Thank you so much for watching UBC TV. Those who have been following us online on our Twitter and on YouTube, and also sending in messages coming in through on that WhatsApp contact. Thank you so much, and I do ask you to keep it UBC. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister Betty Amongi. Thank you so much for sparing time to come and speak to the nation. And thank you so much, Permanent Secretary Agre David Chibenge. From me and the entire team, I am Jethro Kasaigi. It's a good night.
Oh, Uganda, may God uphold thee. We lay our future in thy